Hey everybody, welcome to the last day in the summer camp. Today we're going to be putting the finishing touches on our game. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to implement our UI. We're going to set up a scoring system in the game. We're going to add audio and sound effects to our game. We're going to see how we can add multiple levels to the game. And finally, we're going to build our game out as a standalone executable that can be played on any machine regardless of whether it has Unity installed or not. So today we're going to make a standalone game. So why don't we just jump into it? I'm going to bring up my Unity game right now, and we're going to add our UI system in. So the first thing we have to do to get our UI going is we're going to drag in a prefab I already have made for us. So we're going to find that in Assets, Prefabs, UI, and you're going to select both Event System and HUD Canvas. I'm going to hold down Control and left click so I can select both. I'm going to drag and drop them right underneath my game manager in my scene. And immediately we see in our game view over here, a UI system at the bottom of the screen. Next, we have to add a script to our game manager so our game manager can control our UI. Right now, our game manager, let's go ahead and check it on if it's not already checked. So make sure the game object's activated and make sure our GM script is activated. We're going to add a new script. So we're going to go to Add Component Scripts. We're going to go down to UI Behavior. So what we see is a bunch of empty variables that we need to populate. So why don't we go through and populate those now? So for our Game Manager script, follow with me and we're going to go through each one of these separately. So a lot of our Game Manager empty variables rely on our HUD canvas that we just brought in to our game. You can see that right up here in our HUD canvas. So I'm going to expand that, and a lot of the things we're going to be setting are live right here. So I'm going to pull out, and with my game manager selected again, I have my scripts. I'm just going to start dragging. I'm going to drag my title screen over to my title screen. I'm going to drag my game over screen to my game over screen. I'm going to get my boss health bar, and I'm just going to drag boss health to boss health bar. And we're going to make sure my screen controller is populated. So I'm going to just drag and drop screen controller again just to make sure. And the enemy boss in our level, I'm going to drag and drop enemy boss right there. Next, we're going to populate our UI behavior script over here on the right. All right, so again, we're going to go to our HUD canvas. We're going to go to player status. All right, and we're going to drag over player status onto status UI right there. And then with player status expanded right here in our inspector, or our hierarchy rather, I'm going to start dragging over the health slider of my player, the ammo slider, and the recharge slider. Next, I'm going to drag over my score text to my score. And I'm going to go into my title screen now and expand it. So under title screen, you see our backgrounds, title text, level text. We need to get our level text plugged up into our UI behavior. So with Game Manager selected again, I can get my UI behavior back. I'm going to drag and drop level text right there. And I'm going to expand my boss health game object right here. You see this health slider under boss health? That's what we're going to drag under our boss health slider. All right, great. We got all of our UI hooked up now. So one thing you might notice within our HUD canvas are these two hidden objects right here. One is our title screen and one is our game over screen. And you might want to switch over to your game views. That way when I select my title screen and make it visible, you can see my title screen right here. Make sure you're in 16:9 aspect right here. And right here we can see if we expand title screen, we have title text, level text, press text, instructions text. Our title text If we select it, we can go over to our text script right here. And since it's not controlled by our scripts, we can set that to anything we want to call it. And this will be the name of your game. And I might call my game Good Shooting Boys. That's the name of my game, I guess. And you can do whatever you want to it. You can change its color. I want to do something like a yellowish. There we go. And you can change its font if you want. You can import fonts if you want. You can make it bold and italic. Just a little bit of options right there. Level text will be controlled by our scripts. So leave it at level 0. When we start the game, you'll see it'll say level 1 for our first level. Press text. This is pretty basic. Press enter to play. This is just instructions for the player to know how to start the game by pressing enter. And then we have some instructions down here to move and whatnot. You'll notice I have a little bit of a weird formatting. That's just so it lines up kind of nicely right here. There we go. So you can kind of play around with how your text works just to make sure it lines up and looks good. Our game over screen right here, we can do the same thing with it. So I'm going to select my title screen and hide it. And now I'm going to select my game over screen and activate it. And now we have a game over message. You died. Try again. We can type in anything we want there, but I'm going to just leave it as game over. And then in our press text, since we do have the ability to add multiple levels, we can press enter to retry the level or press spacebar to go to the next level. And you can edit these guys right here. If you something like this happens and your backgrounds aren't lined up anymore, you can always go and change that by going to our backgrounds in our game over screen or whatever screen you're working in. And then these raw images right here correspond to basically how things are lined up. So I can go and pull this down in my scene view. I can pull this up. We just want to have a nice background so our player can read our text without being, messed up. So if you wanted your own font in the game, it's pretty easy. I'm just going to bring up a web browser. I'm going to type in dafont.com, dafont.com. And there's just hundreds, thousands, I don't know, maybe thousands of different kinds of fonts we can use. So what we'll do is I'll just pick this first one, whatever. I'll download it. AnyDoor zip right there. I'll click the file. And here we have a bunch of different files in here. But what we're looking for is our OTF, our Open Type Font file. And then what we can do from here, let me minimize this because this is my download screen. I'm going to go to my textures, and I'm going to drag and drop AnyDoor into there. We might have to unzip it first. So I'm going to go to my desktop, unzip stuff. I usually just drag and drop it like so. I mean, I'll have to slide this over. So it's just a matter of dragging and dropping into Unity. And there we go. Now I have any kind of font. And to change the font of maybe our game over text, let me go over to my game over text right here. Anything that has text in our hierarchy will have stuff written on our screen. And it'll also have this font variable right here. And what we can do is we can just drag and drop. Where's my textures? This is our new font. I want to select my game over text. I'm just going to drag and drop right on to all these different text fields. And of course, things look a little different. So there we go. That might have been the way to fix it. But, again, if you have to, you can reposition your raw images on your backgrounds group. And now we have a fancy game over screen, I guess. So with our UI implemented and now we know how to control some of the text in our menus, I'm going to go ahead and make game over screen go away. I'm gonna hide it by selecting it and unchecking it right here. Don't worry, our scripts will bring it back whenever we need it. What I'm going to do now is make a score manager. So to make a score manager, it's going to be basically like a little game manager. So again, this is pretty common. We're going to create an empty game object. I'm going to reset its transform so it's zeroed out. I'm going to drag and drop it right underneath my game manager. And I'm going to call this score manager, like so. Next, I'm going to attach a script that I've created. So we'll go to Add Component, Scripts, and we'll call this, we'll put on score behavior. All right, so we don't have to do anything with score behavior right now. Our game scores, this is our variable in our score behavior. This will be tracked by our game automatically, okay? So what we might want to do now, we're going to reevaluate our ship scores. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my screen controller and select player. And if we go down to stats right here, you might have seen this score variable previously in stats, but may not have shown up in the videos. I kind of recently updated the script file before I finished the video for the other ones, so I could get scoring working. And our score for each of our ships in our game will be stored on our stat scripts. So every ship should have this, so it's great. What we'll do is we'll set our score for each ship, and the reason I got player score set at -100 is because whenever we die, we're going to take off 100 points from our score, so it'll be kind of like a penalty system for dying. So that'll be nice. And then we'll just go to our enemy standard and set the score. And you might already have all your characters and enemies populated through our scene. So it might be a pain to go to every single one and set the score. Well, what we can do, prefabs have another little added function besides just being ways where we can save our enemies and put them into other scenes. If I go to each of my prefabs right here, there's my enemy boss prefab. I can set its score right up in here. I can set its score to like 200 as an incentive to play through the level and get the highest score possible to beat the boss. And then that'll populate every enemy boss that shares the same prefab or comes from this prefab down here in my folder. So here's enemy standard 1. So I'm going to go ahead and set all of my enemy standards to have different scores, just really messed up scores. So this enemy standard has that score. This enemy standard has 0. The second standard enemy has, that's all over the place, right? I'm going to go back to my prefabs folder. Here, my enemy standard right here has 10. So I'm going to press 10 on it. And it should push that to all the enemies in the thing, in the game. But if it doesn't, see how even though I set the score in my prefabs, what we can do is I can just pick an enemy standard anywhere in your scene or turret, depending on what enemy you want to do. And we'll set the score to 10 there. And then what we'll do is we'll apply this to the prefab. But even pressing apply didn't get this enemy's score set back to 10. Well, what we can do, since we did set our enemy standard score to 10 in our prefab folder, so down here is my prefab folder. I've selected my enemy standard, and I do know that my prefab ship does have a score of 10 right there. What I can do is I can select all enemy standards in my inspector here, and right now they all have different scores. What I'll do is I'll just go to revert to each one, and you can see the scores change to 10. And what revert does is it changes all of the behaviors, all the stats in your inspector to whatever they are in the player prefab in your folder down here. So that's just a nice way that we can make sure all of our enemies are standardized. So with enemy turret selected, I'm going to go down to enemy turret, my prefabs folder, and I'm going to give us enemy turret a score of 15. Boom. And you'll see that Wow, this did update my turrets down here. Now my turrets are 15. Let's set my enemy turrets to 20 and see if it updates my turrets in my scene. So yes, it does update all the enemies in your scene. Granted, given you haven't changed or destroyed your prefab for each enemy here. So enemy dogfighter, he's a little tough guy. So I'm going to set his score to 30. So now my enemy dogfighter will have a score of 30. So prefabs really come in handy. And even my boss has a score of 200 right there. All right, perfect. So now our scoring system's set up. Why don't we take this time now to kind of test out what's going on in our game. So I'll press enter. Well, let me move my screen controller back a little bit in my scene. He's kind of right up on everybody, isn't he? All right, great. So if I press play, what we see is the name of my game, Good Shooting Boys. We can see that my weapons starts out at 50 energy and now it's slowly increasing. I can shoot my guns, and if I press enter to play, we're starting our scene. And keep your eye on the score below. Here we get a score of 20 for our ship that was destroyed. Boom. All right, so here we have a turret that gave us 50. We should have 70 now. Perfect. And our score, will keep track of our score through each level in our game. Destroyed that dogfighter. That gave me a nice little boost. And looks like we're getting to our boss character. And I made my bosses easy so I could test. And now we have a score of 300. Perfect. All right, so one of the last things we need to add to our game are sound effects. And this is going to be more of just the same of dragging and dropping new components, assigning new variables, this and that. So hang on and let's do it. So to add music to our game, we're going to go to my game manager, and I'm going to go to add component. And I'm going to go to audio, and we're going to select audio source right there. You'll know you see I have this new component. We're only really going to be concerned on if it's my music volume, I probably should make it loop. This volume control right here will be pretty important when you want to mix and match all your sound effects in your game to make sure one sound effect isn't too powerful than the other. And this audio clip right here, we'll just drag and drop what song we want into our game. So I'm going to go to Assets, Audio, and here I have five different types of music. I can select my music and hit the play button down here in the bottom right, and we can get a preview of what it sounds like. That's pretty funky. Pretty chill. Here we go. That's the last one. And that sounds like it. Okay, so basically we can preview all of our sound effects by selecting them. Looks like a missile line. And it's a nice little way to preview our stuff. So I'm going to select Game Manager, and I'm going to drag and drop Music E onto my clip right there. And I want to set its volume to 0.5. We'll start in the middle of the volume. And now hit play. Alright, so now we have music in our game. But we're missing something. We're missing like shots being fired. We're missing explosions. So why don't we see how we can add those next. Alright, so what we have to do is basically add that same kind of audio source component to our primary and secondary weapon game objects in our scene here. So I'm going to go to my player. Here's my player selected in my hierarchy. I'm going to expand him and double laser. Why don't I just go ahead and call this primary weapon and secondary weapon, so it kind of matches you guys a little bit more closely. So with my primary weapon selected, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom here. Let me get rid of that. I'm going to add component, audio, audio source, and same thing here. We're going to control the volume, play on awake. That sounds good. And since this is a laser, let's see what that sounds nice. Laser A sounds like a good laser. So I'm going to select my primary weapon again, and I'm going to drag laser A into my audio clip under my primary weapon in my inspector. Great. Make sure loop is turned off. You only want the sound to play once. And with secondary weapon selected, it's kind of like a missile. So I'm going to go to add component, audio, audio source. We'll turn down the volume. And I want to add swarm missile A. There we go. Why don't we play and see That doesn't seem to be the way we need to do it. Huh, that seems so easy, didn't it? So what we're going to do is we're going to take primary and we're going to remove the audio source component. We go to secondary weapon and remove it. So that's not, that should have been the way we do it. Well, you'll see in our shot, and these are two new, you might have seen sound effect and sound effect volume in earlier videos, but you haven't seen it. Again, this is a new script variable that I've added to the game. So this is actually where we'll assign our audio clip. So with my primary weapon selected, I'm going to go and get that laser A and drag and drop it in my sound effect. And I can even control its volume right here, so that's nice. And we'll do the same thing. I'll get the swarm missile right there on sound effect A. Great. So basically, our shots are automatically going to try to play our sound effect volume based on what we've assigned in our sound effect right here with all of our settings here. So I'm going to press play. There's my music playing. And while I'm playing, I'm going to mess with the volume slider here. Loud. To make sure it mixes with our game. I like that volume. Now I'm going to grab my secondary. I'm going to remember that. 0.25. Alright, 0.25 to my. I'm going to do a 0.5 for this one. So when I unpress play, you'll see that my settings have reverted back to where they were. So that's why I remembered 0.25 and 0.5. 0.25 for my primary and 0.5 for my secondary. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to grab my player and update my player prefab to make sure that my laser and my missile sound effects and my volume are updated to my prefab. So now we have to add explosions for whenever our player and our enemies explode. So we're going to have to do these steps for each player and enemy in our game. So why don't we go ahead and see how we can do that. So I'll grab my player. And what I need to do is I need to add component, audio, audio source. We're going to uncheck audio source for right now. And we're going to assign an audio clip explosion. Under audio, explosion A will be fine for right now. Perfect. And I'm going to set its volume to kind of 0.5 just to get it regular. All right. So we're basically going to have to add an audio source, uncheck it, and add an audio clip for every ship prefab in our game. And I'm going to go ahead and update my player prefab. And since we do have prefabs working for us, why don't we go to our assets, prefabs folder. And now I can just add the audio to every prefab ship I have in the game. So I'll go to add component, audio, let me go back, audio, sound source, uncheck it, audio explosion B, I guess, and we'll make the volume 1, we'll make it loud. And that's good for our boss. And if I select my boss in my scene now, so here's my boss in my scene, you can see that his audio source has been updated for us. So prefabs are very powerful. Dogfighter, we'll do the same thing. Audio source, uncheck it, give it explosion C, bring down the volume just a little bit, and back to our prefabs folder. Here's our standard enemy. Audio source, uncheck it. Audio, we'll give that explosion C, we'll bring it down a little bit. And since I'm making direct changes to my prefabs, I don't need to press apply to prefab because I'm changing the root prefab directly, so that shouldn't be a problem. And I might as well go ahead and give an audio source to my enemy template. And I'll uncheck it, and I'll leave it none because I don't know what kind of explosion noise I want for it yet. So here, enemy turret, audio source, uncheck it. Because in our script, whenever we kill ourselves or whenever our enemy dies, this will be activated in our code, and it'll start playing everything whenever it becomes active. That's why we're unchecking things. I'm just going to put in explosion D, and it looks like my player already, okay, it looks like we're good. So I'm going to press play. There we go. Get a quiet explosion. You might need to raise the volume of our explosions. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to my prefabs folder, and I'm going to set all the noise volume for my explosions back to 1. That's just tweaking and iterating our sound effects. So with volume set to 1, why don't we replay it? There we go, that sounds a little bit better. Boom. So now we have explosions, laser weapon hits, and music in our game. You may be tempted to add sound effects to your enemies. So why don't we see what happens when we do that? So I'm going to grab my enemy prefab in my prefabs folder, go to their primary weapon, and I'm going to go to audio. Kind of wimpy. Let's give them let's give it a little zap A. All right. So it might be tricky to drag the audio from here to there. It might be easier if I just select an enemy standard in my scene, select its, expand it, select its primary weapon, and add zap A to its sound effect. Set its volume, and I don't know, maybe zap C. We'll see. Yeah, I like that. And then since my enemy prefab is, I added those sound effects to the enemy standard prefab in my scene, I'll just apply those changes, and that'll apply to every enemy in my scene. So now, let's see if my enemies. So you see, it might be a little annoying. So our enemy standards have to. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. Okay. So I'm not going to really do it for mine, I don't think. But I'll just leave them in for now. Alright, so that's how we can add sound effects to our game. So the game also has the ability to chain multiple levels together. Within our game manager, we can just nicely do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the level we're working in now. It's a nice level. It's got our UI in it. It's got our screen controller in it. It's got our player in it. And why don't we make this like a template level that we can open up and save under different names to create all the levels we'll need. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this level. I don't know. I give it a name like sun level. So I've saved my level. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in and, I don't know, kind of delete some things here. Well, it really just depends. Do you want to leave all this environment stuff in your template so you can quickly grab stuff, or you want to start fresh? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all my wreckage. I'm going to leave my floor and ceiling. I'm going to grab my wreckage, delete it. I'm going to grab all my enemies and delete them. All right. So what I'm left with is my screen controller for my player. I'm going to leave my enemy boss in. Just because he's hooked up to my game manager. You can always go in and make multiple different bosses. Just make sure that each new boss you bring in your scene, you assign to your game manager script right here, enemy boss to enemy boss. So I don't want to delete anything else. I just want to kind of get rid of the wreckage and the enemy placement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Save As, Scenes. I'm going to call this, in big letters, Template Scene. Perfect. Now I have a scene where I can start from and create multiple levels without having to go in and hook up my UI every time, or make a floor or ceiling every time, or make a new screen controller every time. I can just use this template. So to do that, just make sure that before you even start working in template scene, we'll just go to new scene. I'll open up scene, go to scenes. There's my template scene, so I'll open it. Looks familiar. Before I do anything, I'm going to go to Save Scene As, Scenes, and I'm going to call this ice level, like so. All right. So now I have a scene called ice level and a scene called sun level and a scene called template, and I can start making multiple scenes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up my sun level scene, and you can see that I've taken the directional light in the level and I've changed the color to kind of like an orangish, and bumped up its intensity, because if I go in my game view, we can see that I'm like running through the sun, basically. And so I would figure the sun would cast a nice orange light in my game. And I'm going to go to File and Open Scene, and I'm going to go to this ice level I made a second ago. And you can see that I have kind of a bluish light under my directional light right here. And I got its intensity set low, because in my game, it's kind of like an icy level. Well, I even have different weapons on my player. Yeah, you can do that. Got mines. See, that's annoying, isn't it? Maybe we shouldn't have sound effects on our enemies. Or maybe turn down the volume. Alright, brilliant. So I'm going to go in and open up my sun level. This is what I want my first level to be. And I'm going to just double check all the final touches I have. I like my enemy placement. I like my boss where it is. I'm going to go to open up my screen controller and grab my main camera. And then here I can set any kind of skybox that I want, Neptune, Mars. But I like my sun skybox. Perfect. And that's the finishing touches on the level. So I'm going to go ahead and save scene. And I'm going to open up my, my ice level. And I'll show you that all I've done here again is just reorganized my wreckage. I got different enemy placements. I went to, again, I changed the directional light to a bluish light. And on my screen controller main camera, I changed my skybox to the icy skybox. So it kind of gives the level a different feel. Alright, so I have two good levels in my game. How do I get them to chain together now? Well, first I'm going to go to the scene, the level that I want to be my first level. So I'll go to scenes and I'll select sun level. And with this level open and everything just the way I like it, I'm going to go to file, build settings. Right up here, file, build settings. And this comes up with the build setting window. You can see scenes in build. Right now I have no scenes. I have no levels. So add open scenes. Oh, I don't mind if I do. And there we go. We have scenes, sun level, with a little 0 out here. And that 0 means it's the first level in our game. Computers like to start counting from 0. So that just means there's not 0 sun levels in my game. That just means it's the first one in my game. All right. And then I'm going to go to File, Open Scenes. And I'm going to select the next level in my game, which will be the ice level. All right. And then when this scene opened, I'm going to add Open Scenes. And there we go. Scenes, ice level. And there we have a 1 there. So you're noticing a theme 0, 1. This is effectively level 1 and level 2. Okay, great. If you get to the point where you accidentally put your scenes in the wrong order, or if you want to just delete one, just go to your build settings and select whatever scene you want to delete and hit delete on the keyboard, and that'll get rid of it. Not backspace, but delete. But I want to bring that ice level back in. That's pretty nice. All right, so I want to go and open my sun level scene. And this will be like my first level. I'll hit play. And while I play it for a second, I have a score of 20. We kill a turret. Looks like our enemies do a score even when they die. It's fine. You know, they're not going to make it much of a complex. Oh, there's my dog fighter. Ooh, 120 score now. Oh man, my health is really low. This isn't good. Oh god. Third cordial. Oh, I tripped the ball. Boom. So I can press enter to replay the level. You'll notice it puts me back at level 1. And don't worry if you miss the game a level like this in the start. That's just a side effect of our lighting system and the way we test it. You make the final build of the game, all the light levels are way. You'll notice that even though I've died, I still have a score of 280. I'm going to kill myself and watch my score decrease. Okay, well, boom, killed myself. I want to press spacebar next. Ooh, level 2. You'll notice that my score still stays with us. I can press enter. And now I'm playing my second level. Alright, great. Just racking up this point. Alright, this is what happens whenever I die in the last level of my game. Boom. There we go. So I had a little bug a second ago. I noticed that whenever I died on the ice level, it didn't give me the game over screen. I wonder why that is. Well, I'm going to open up my scene ice level and we're going to troubleshoot it for a second. All right. First of all, I don't have audio on my player's guns. That's not good. And then you'll see that I have this new error. I'm going to pause this. There's no audio source attached to player, but a script's trying to access it. So it's not giving me the game over screen because, look, my player has its prefab broken because I was messing with its different weapons. So what I need to do is I either need to bring in my original player or update all the settings because it's no longer a player prefab because I changed it so much. So I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm going to delete that player and bring in just my regular player prefab and we'll put it right under Screen Manager. And there he is with my audio source attached right down there. All right. So here's my level 2. I have my lasers and missiles back. Nightmare. Good. Nice. It just seemed like we didn't have the audio source of the player, which was causing. Oh, so whenever you go to the last level and press spacebar, it just puts you to the back of level 1. Okay. Alright, why don't we see how we can build out this game now. Alright, before we really finish with our building our level, make sure you play through your game and make sure you can beat it yourself. Make sure there's no weird bugs like you just saw us having with the audio on the other player and the ice scene. And make sure that all your enemies give you the right score and they function nicely. Basically, just play test your game, right? Alright, so we'll save that scene because I just updated the player. So when we're going to build out our game, we're going to do something first. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to right click and go to new and make a folder. I'm going to call this space game. Alright, so there's my space game folder. That'll be important. This is where we're going to save our game to. So I want to bring up Unity again. I'm going to go to File. File, Build Settings. There's my levels in my game. Perfect. And target window x86. All looks good. And we're going to go to Build. Then I'm going to navigate to my desktop. There's my Space Games folder, so I'm going to click in it. And this is what we're going to call the executable file. Space Game. We'll just call it Space Game, whatever. You can be more creative, I hope. And we'll just hit Save. And you'll see Unity kind of being like, building the player out. And it's making our game for us as we speak. Okay. So it built the game for us, and it went ahead and opened up the folder it's saved in. So if I go to my desktop, again, Space Game, and you'll notice 2 folders right here. Alright. This makes a executable file when you build it out, and Space Game data. This is very important. This is all the computer gobbledygook in our game. If we separate our executable from our Space Game data folder and try to run, data folder not found. So we need to make sure our executable and our game data are together in the same folder. So really, when you want to share your game, make sure you pass off the folder that these 2 things are held. So now when I press Space Game and press play, it takes us straight to level 1. We get a nice score, sound effect, also weapons. And this is the game, guys. Let's see if I can get the boss roll to prove that we can get to the end of the game. I didn't mess up right there and I just had to toss it. Ooh, I made that. Dog fighters. Oh, nice. Best way to get dog fighters to die. No! Alright. So, one thing I built into the game, if you don't press anything, you get 9 seconds to pick an option. If you don't press anything, it'll just take you to the next level. So my score is 80. That's a lot. Guns. Oh, these turrets are painful. There we go. Looks like I forgot to set music for this level. Whatever. That's not annoying at all, is it? Ooh, came up right behind it. Taking out all of it. Oh, I can't even beat my own game. I can press enter to retry the level. I have the same score from the last time I died. Remember, if I die, I get -100. Or I can press spacebar. go back to level 1. And the lighting, just the way we like it. Told you the build station. And you can just keep playing all your levels over and over again. And just keep racking up your score. You know how you can get it. Alright guys, appreciate all the attention and patience you guys have shown throughout all the lectures. A lot of hard stuff to do for sure, but the results were. Alright, hope you guys had fun doing this. I know I have fun. Thank you. And, later. Oh yeah, one more thing. So I didn't really build in a end game function. So when you're playing the game, hold down alternate and press F4. And that will delete or stop the game from playing. I almost forgot about that one. Maybe I should build in a escape button next time to quit the game. Oh well, we can always make things better, can't we? Later, guys.